There's a place, he comes to me. Though I'm blind, he helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see him face to face.
This is Kurt Kaikkonen, pastor of Calvary Chapel, Waterford, at your neighborhood church. Today on Face to Face, we'll be in the book of Revelation. So grab your Bibles and let's get started. If you want to hear this complete message in its entirety, go to yourneighborhoodchurch.com, where you can download Your Neighborhood Church app at the App Store.
And this angel, he takes John to this great mountain, and it must have been located on the new earth, because John had to be on some other high point to be able to see this city descending from the new heaven. And then the angel calls this city of the New Jerusalem the Lamb's bride. So this city is not only the home of the bride, but it actually is the bride. And that's because this is where the bride dwells. And this is where we will live. And this is where we will be one with Jesus and his Father, like he told us in John 17. And I believe this is the place that Jesus is talking about in John 14:2, where he said, "In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also." And so what's really good for me to see here is that we don't lose our identity in becoming one, but that we live together. And so it's like being in a marriage where you're one because you live together and where you can wipe away each other's tears. And some believe that the city of New Jerusalem will actually be a floating city above the new earth. And I kind of like to see it that way. Like it's this diamond floating in the sky, because it's described as having the glory of God, and her light was like a most precious stone. And it says it's like jasper, but the jasper stones that we know of today here on earth, they're usually a milky white, but this one is described as being clear like crystal. And back in John's day, most people, they would have never seen a large diamond, but they would have seen jaspers. And so this description of a jasper, it actually looks more like a diamond. And then John starts to describe these walls and these gates and these foundations. And we're told that there's 12 gates with the names of all the 12 tribes of Israel on them. And they're arranged with 3 gates on each side. And it says 3 gates on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, and 3 on the west. And so in this new heavens and new earth, we will have directional bearings, just like we do here, that we will have a north, south, east, and west, like on a compass. And then with these gates, with the names of 3 tribes of Israel on each side of the city, well, this is the same way that the 12 tribes of Israel were arranged when they set up their camp, when they were traveling during the Exodus. And that's how they camped around the tabernacle of God, as it was described in the book of Numbers. And then we're told that these walls have 12 foundations with the 12 apostles' names on them. And so this city, it's made up of things from the Old Testament saints, and it's made up of things and names from the New Testament saints. And then we see that this angel, who actually reminds us a lot of Corey, because when he's working, he pulls out his tape measure, because Corey, he always has a tape measure on him, but only when he's working. And so does this angel. So this angel's tape measure, it's called a gold reed, which is like a yardstick. And this angel, he measures the city, and it says it's 1,200 furlongs by 1,200 furlongs, which means this is 1,500 miles by 1,500 miles. And 1,500 miles is about the distance from the state of Maine all the way down to Florida. And so 1,500 miles by 1,500 miles, that's also about the size of 3/4 of the United States, which is extremely big for just a city. And then we're also told that this city is also 1,500 miles high. So these walls are 1,500 miles tall. And so this city is a perfect cube. And so this also, again, makes sense why it looks like a diamond in the sky. And actually, this city being a perfect cube, it's about the same size as the moon that orbits our Earth. And then these walls are 144 cubits thick, which means that they're 216 feet thick. And it's made out of one piece of clear jasper. So there are no studs in these walls. And it says that the city is all pure gold. And that gold is so pure that it's actually translucent and you can see light through it. And then we're told about these foundations with the apostles' names on them. Well, these foundations, that they're not underground. These foundations can all be seen, and they're all made out of these colored gems. And no one is sure actually what all these gems are, or actually what colors they actually are. But being 12 gems, it reminds us of that breastplate that was carried in by the high priest, where he'd have these 12 gems on his breastplate that he wore on his chest when he entered into the Holy of Holies. But on his breastplate, each one of those gems had the name of each of the tribes of Israel inscribed on them. Where here, we're going to have the names of each of the 12 apostles inscribed. And so nobody can be adamant about these gems, but these are the colors that these gems are to be. Okay, you have jaspers, and we're already told here that it looks like a diamond, and that is clear. And sapphires are usually blue, and chalcedony is supposed to be like this greenish blue. Emeralds are green, and sardonyx is like onyx, which is said to be white with streaks of brown or streaks of red. And sardis is a blood red, kind of like a ruby. And crystallite is not the drink, crystallite, but it's like a yellow quartz. And nobody knows for sure what crystal praise is, but some think it's a gold-tinted stone, and others think it's like a green apple colored. And jacinth is blue, though some people say it's yellow, and amethyst is purple. And the gates that have these 12 tribes names on them, they're all made out of one big pearl. And what seems really odd is because a pearl is usually a Gentile's gem, because they're made by shellfish, and shellfish are unclean to the Jews. But it seems that all these things are mixed together in this New Jerusalem, where the Old and the New Testaments are both blended together in this complementary style and in this harmony. And so this is like an ancient city that we're familiar with walls and foundations and gates and streets. And what that tells you is that this city is built for permanence. So this is not a temporary home for us. And what I like also is that this city is kind of color coordinated. I would assume for myself that it's so that we don't get lost, so we can find our mansions. So you can say, well, I live in the Purple Palace and the Purple, or I live in the Emerald City like Oz. So we won't, because this is a very large city, because there's plenty of room for all of us. And then John, he tells us that there's no temple in the city. And he says that the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. And this makes perfect sense, because we won't need a temple, because temples are just places to worship God. And this place is one big, glorious temple. And what's interesting here is that this New Jerusalem is a perfect cube. The Holy of Holies in the tabernacle that Moses built, and also the Holy of Holies in the temple that Solomon built, both of them were perfect cubes. But inside of both of those places in the Holy of Holies, there was the Ark of the Covenant, which was God's presence in that temple. But here, there won't be an Ark of the Covenant, because here we have God himself, and Jesus Christ himself will be there in person, where he will live with us. And so instead of just having one priest that can enter the Holy of Holies once a year. We're a whole kingdom of priests, and we live there, and we will be there always. And just like in the temple, there was no light shined from any outside source. The only light that it had was the one lampstand that shone inside the temple. And here also, there will be no sun or no moon to shine in this Holy of Holies. The only light there and the only source of light that we'll have is the Lamb. That'll be Jesus himself, his light and his glory. And this shouldn't trouble us at all, because even in the original creation of the earth, God said, "Let there be light," and there was, and God created light. And he did this before he ever created the sun or the moon. So this city will need no other source of light. And here in this city, there'll never be any night. So in this city, it will always be light. And then it tells us that the only people who live here have been saved, and they're from all the nations, and that there's even kings here. And we do know that. We know that King David will be there, and some of his descendants that were kings, they'll be there. But I believe there'll be other kings there too. But everyone there will have been written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And then when we get to chapter 22, we see that this city where we live, it's like a garden. And it's just like when God walked with Adam and Eve in the garden. Here, he will walk with us. And in this garden, we find a lot of the same things that were found in the original Garden of Eden, where there was a river here. The Garden of Eden, it had 4 rivers there. And then we have this tree of life that we will eat from, where Adam and Eve, they were prevented from eating from this tree of life in their fallen state. And that was so that they wouldn't live eternally in a fallen state forever. But here, as their descendants, we can eat freely because we are no longer fallen, and we will never be fallen again. Because what's missing in this garden, in the New Jerusalem, is that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's no longer around. And so we will no longer live handicapped lives by sin. And this is what all the patriarchs and all the saints that they looked forward to. And it's just like what it said about Abraham in Hebrews 11:10, where he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. And we're told that this tree of life is on both sides of the river of life, and that it bears 12 fruits, with a different fruit in every month. And in our translation, it says, "for the healing of the nations." And you kind of might wonder, and you say, well, what are we going to have to be healed from? Are we going to be able to get sick there? But the word healing here in Greek is the word therapion, and that's where we get our word therapeutic. So this can mean that these leaves are therapeutic, or that they're health-giving. And where we see this tree bears a different kind of fruit every month, which means that there's some kind of timekeeping in eternity, that there will be months and there will be seasons.
You've been listening to Face to Face. Face to Face on this radio station has been provided by Your Neighborhood Church. If you want to help support Face to Face and put this program on other stations just like yours, you can contact us at yourneighborhoodchurch.com or write Your Neighborhood Church, P.O. Box 500, Romeo, Michigan 48065.
There's a place he comes to me. Though I'm blind, he helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see him face to face.
Tune in again tomorrow at this same time as we continue to go through the Bible.